12 cars destroyed, a NASCAR legend calling him out on live TV, and even a rival crew chief saying he completely lost his mind. Bubba Wallace just had the worst day of his 2026 season, and the hardest part is, he only had himself to blame. March 29, 2026. The Cookout 400 at Martinsville Speedway. And if you know Martinsville, then you already know what kind of pressure cooker this place is. It's a tiny, half-mile, flat, paperclip-shaped oval where the cars spend the entire race running inches apart. There's nowhere to hide. Every bump gets noticed. Every shove means something. Every little mistake gets magnified. And at Martinsville, tempers burn hotter than almost anywhere else on the NASCAR schedule. Bubba Wallace came into this race sitting third in the NASCAR Cup Series point standings. That's a huge deal. It meant he had been one of the best and most consistent drivers in the sport through the opening stretch of the season. He had 4 top, 1-0 finishes in his first 5 races, and everything was trending in the right direction for the number 23 Toyota team. All he needed to do was keep things under control, bring the car home clean, and protect that strong points position. But that's not how this day was going. Wallace never really had the pace at Martinsville. His team just couldn't get the car exactly where it needed to be. He started 15th, ran outside the top 10 inches both Stage 1 and Stage 2, and when the final stage began, he was stuck around 17th place. Not a disaster, but definitely not where he wanted to be. And as the race kept slipping away, the frustration started building. Then came the moment that lit the fuse. Just 2 laps before the big wreck, Carson Hocevar pushed Wallace 3 wide going into Turn 1. Now at Martinsville, going 3 wide is aggressive. It's risky. There's barely enough room for 2 cars, let alone 3. Wallace didn't like it at all. He was already frustrated with how his day was unfolding, and Hocevar forcing him into that situation just added even more fuel to the fire. So on the very next restart, lap 325, Wallace lined up behind Hocevar's number 77 Chevrolet heading into Turn 3. And he didn't just give him a little bump. He drove hard into the back of Hocevar's car. It was a full-on shove. The first hit didn't spin Hocevar. The number 77 got loose, wiggled around, but Hocevar somehow gathered it back up and kept it straight. At that point, that should have been the end of it. Back off, reset, move on. But Wallace wasn't finished. He misjudged the center of the corner and hit Hocevar again. This time, the second shot turned the number 77 sideways. Hocevar's car slid across the track and blocked the entire lane. And at Martinsville, when the field is packed that tightly together, there is absolutely nowhere to go. That's when everything exploded. Car after car slammed into the wreck. Drivers had no time to react. The crash just kept growing and growing, and by the time it was over, 12 cars were involved. 12. Nearly a quarter of the field got wiped out in one incident. And these weren't just random backmarkers either. Chris Buescher was caught in it. Zane Smith got collected. Erik Jones had his race ruined. A huge chunk of the field had their day destroyed because of what happened between Wallace and Hocevar. And Bubba didn't escape it either. His car was done. Terminal damage. Race over. He finished 36th, and the hit to the standings was brutal. He dropped from 3rd all the way down to 11th in the points. 8 spots gone in a single race. All the momentum he had built over the first part of the season took a massive hit in one moment. And Wallace knew it. After being checked and released from the infield care center, he spoke to Fox Sports reporter Jamie Little. "I misjudged," Wallace said. "I didn't appreciate the 3 wide into Turn 1. Fine. But I misjudged the center of the corner and didn't mean to turn him." What a frustrating day, man. Just wasn't the day we wanted. I hate it for our team. He also said something else that really stuck with people. "We can win Saturday in practice, just don't show up on Sunday." That tells you everything about how frustrated he was with the entire weekend. He knew the pace wasn't there. He knew the race had slipped away. And he knew he had made everything even worse. But while Wallace was saying he simply misjudged it, the people watching the replay saw something very different. Up in the Fox Sports booth, the suspicion started almost immediately. Even before the replay had fully played out, Mike Joy hinted right away that something didn't look right. Then Clint Bowyer jumped in and made it clear he agreed. And when the replay rolled, Kevin Harvick didn't hold back at all. "Bubba Wallace just drove flat through the 77 car," Harvick said. Then he went a step further. "There's got to be more to that story." Because right there, I would assume something happened before that for that type of aggression. He was mad. Bowyer backed him up even more strongly. Yeah, it was definitely on purpose, Bowyer said. That wasn't a big enough block to warrant that, though. There was more to that story. I agree with you. Think about that for a second. Two former Cup Series champions watched the replay and both came to the same conclusion. It looked intentional. That's a big accusation, and it made the whole thing even more explosive. But the criticism didn't stop there. On NASCAR's Inside the Race, Kyle Petty went after Wallace too, and Petty made a really interesting point. He said Carson Hocevar has developed such an aggressive reputation that people are almost conditioned to blame him anytime something happens. But in this case, Petty said Hocevar wasn't the problem. Hocevar is an easy target right now, Petty said. You almost wrecked Hocevar, and everybody says, well, that's just Hocevar. He had that one coming. But in this case, I don't think Hocevar had this coming, man. Taking you 3 wide at Martinsville is not cause for what we're seeing right here on the screen. That's strong. And then Petty went even deeper. He brought up the pressure Wallace might be feeling inside his own team. Remember, Bubba Wallace drives for 23 EXI Racing alongside Tyler Reddick, and Reddick has been absolutely unstoppable this season. He became the first driver in history to win the first 3 Cup Series races of a season. He won 4 of the first 6 races. He's the points leader. He's been the dominant force in the garage. And Petty thinks that matters. You race your teammates, Petty said. I don't give a rat's rear end what anybody says. You race your teammates. You want to be top of the heap, king of the hill in your own team. And I think there's some frustration and some pent-up anger in that when you get into it. In other words, Petty believes some of Wallace's frustration may not have just been about Martinsville. It may have been bigger than that. It may have been the pressure of seeing his teammate dominate while he's trying to prove he belongs at that same level. Now, not everyone saw it exactly the same way. Steve Letarte pushed back a little bit. He said he thought Wallace may simply have been racing hard and misjudged how much throttle he was carrying into the corner. At a place like Martinsville, that kind of contact can happen quickly, and once a driver gets out of shape, it doesn't take much for everything to go wrong. But even with that explanation out there, plenty of people still couldn't understand why Wallace made that move in the first place. Over on the Teardown podcast, the Athletics' Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi both questioned the decision. Gluck called it one of the most puzzling moves of the entire season, and his point was simple. Wallace wasn't even fighting for a win. He wasn't battling for a top 5. He was around 15th place when he bulldozed Hocevar. That's what made the whole thing feel so unnecessary. And then you have Hocevar's side of it. Right after the wreck, Hocevar got on the team radio and said, I just tried not to run over him. Got destroyed. That's frustrating. Then, unbelievably, he apologized to his own team. Think about that. The driver who got hit from behind twice, turned around, and had his car wrecked was the one apologizing on the radio. But his crew chief had a much different reaction. He told Hocevar exactly what he thought happened. You caught him sleeping. He left it open. Then he just ran over you. He lost his mind. That's not a TV analyst saying it. That's Hocevar's own crew chief, in the middle of the moment, saying Wallace lost his mind on the racetrack. And what makes Hocevar look even better in this whole situation is what happened after the crash. Even with heavy damage, Hocevar stayed in the race. His team made repairs. They kept working on the car, and somehow he managed to finish 17th. Not an amazing result, but he brought the car home. Wallace didn't. His car sat in the garage, destroyed, done for the day. And that's what makes this whole thing so painful for Bubba Wallace. This wasn't just a bad finish. This wasn't just one rough Martinsville race. This was a self-inflicted disaster at the worst possible time. He came into the weekend as one of the top 3 drivers in the standings, with momentum, consistency, and a real chance to stay near the top of the championship fight. He left Martinsville with a wrecked race car, a wrecked points day, and a replay that had former champions openly questioning whether the move was intentional. That's the kind of moment people remember. Because in NASCAR, one mistake can ruin your race. One emotional decision can ruin your day. And one wreck like this can change the entire direction of a season. For Bubba Wallace, Martinsville may have been more than just a frustrating afternoon. It may have been the moment where everything started to slip.